moving through his path, share his thoughts on his 8 years in Toastmasters, share a few business career tips from his 65 years of paid labor. Today, Warren will share a look back on his experience Toastmasters and a few other places. His time is 10 to 12 minutes, and his title is It's the Little Things That Count. Please welcome Warren.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I just want to have a little chat today, not a big formal talk, because I've already completed the pathway, and then Pathways has this extra talk at the end, so I feel like I can do just about anything I want, which is kind of what I'm going to do. But I do owe Pathways program a little feedback on my reaction to the path I just finished and some comments on Toastmaster in general. First of all, I think visionary communication may be the best pathway in the program. Now, the reason I say that is because, and I'm assuming one of the goals that many of you share is to be successful in your venture, whether it's working within a corporation, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a kind of a hot little self-run sort of thing, like Kelly and Mara's little stuff that they do, or a major corporation or a startup. It provides the foundation, which includes flexibility, to really work on storytelling. And storytelling right now, and has been for the last decade, one of the key skills required for success in a business, a nonprofit, and many ways, even if you're volunteering. Because the world doesn't want to just hear a bunch of facts. And you can take a sample of 5 or even 3 stories and sell an idea faster than you can with a survey of 1,000, 1,500 people. It's totally statistically accurate. The stories have power. And I learned that years ago working on a project with McKinsey and Company. And I had come out of a major corporation where statistics, Procter & Gamble specifically, required you had the facts. And here I'm seeing these guys say, let's go talk to a few customers. And that's, to me, is like a focus group. It's not statistically valid, at least that's what I thought then, and I broke anyway. I will explain in a minute how powerful that is. So that's my reaction to the pathway. The others are good, but it's the best. Now, probably tip number 2 is more important. Toastmasters, in my view, is probably the magic key to success in your activities. Whether it's a business, whether you're entering into it, or mid-career, or semi-retired and doing other gig stuff, it's magic because of what you can learn in this program. Now, there are some things that I have to explain about that. I came 8 years ago into Toastmasters, and I was a professional speaker. When I got here, I went around the world speaking for Microsoft at major multinational conferences. Before that, I was the head of PR for a couple of banks. I didn't really feel like I needed to work on speaking skills. But when I got here, I discovered something. I was a one-trick pony, and I have to excuse myself because I'm getting a phone call, and it goes into my ears, and that didn't work. Anyway, we'll do what we can to ignore it. Anyway, I was a one-trick pony. When I went around the world doing this, I had a slide deck, very professionally developed, obviously PowerPoint slide deck, because that's all you could use there for some reason. It had embedded videos, it had stuff that were fancy tricks, and I had probably 100 slides, and depending upon whether it was a consumer bank or a business bank or another bank or whatever the audience was, I could suppress certain slides and bring out the rest, and I was ready for 30 to 45 minutes. It's always the same kind of message. My job was to scare the hell out of the people in the audience about customer experience in the financial services world, so that at the end of the day, they would come up and say, okay, you've convinced me I need to use technology to improve the customer experience. How do I do it? And I would introduce them to my local Microsoft rep. And they took it from there. So I did my job, scare them, and move on to the next town. So I basically went on campus, would speak 3 to 4 times a week in front of 20 people coming from a specific bank. And when I traveled, it was up to 3,000 people. And I have done as many as one every day for 10 days from city to city to city. But being a one-trick pony hit me right between the eyes when I got to Toastmasters. Because I didn't know how to just hang loose and tell a fun old folk tale type story, or to do Broadway kinds of things. The Phantom of the Opera, I'll never forget having to do that with a hoarse voice, and had to wear a black cape and all of that to do that, and to tell stories that actually brought tears to people. It took time. And if I'm going to leave some messages, it would be, expect it to take time. Plan on it taking time, because you need to work it. Like they say in Al-Anon, it works if you work it. And you've got to do it for a longer time than you think. The other trick I would say is force your schedule. In other words, put down a speaking engagement 2 weeks from now on that schedule, here it is. Make yourself committed. Don't plan on it, commit to it, because it's human nature. You're going to not work on it until it's just a little bit of time left. And so you've got to put it on there. The other point about scheduling, put something that you're doing on every meeting. Commit to one of those jobs every meeting. Because this doesn't work if people just come and want to talk. It has to be a nice network of people doing each of the tasks. And I know so many people who have come to sample one of our meetings, like you did a while back. The first impression they have is not how great the speaking is, but how organized everything is, and everything plays a role. And that's the key part for Toastmasters. The other thing I would say is know your topics. Research your content, but don't over-rehearse. I kind of prefer to never rehearse because I like impromptu speaking, but I do need notes now and then. But it's good. Go through it in your head. That's rehearsing it when you're getting ready in the morning or trying to put yourself to sleep. Think through, visualize. But I wouldn't stand in front of a mirror every time. It helps a little bit to time it at the beginning, but then I gave up on that a long time ago. So that's my feedback on Toastmasters. But over the years, starting with a Procter & Gamble and a Sunkist and a Seafirst Bank, I picked up a few other tips. And the title of my talk, it's The Little Things That Count. So I want to just share those because my wife really doesn't want to hear them anymore and I need to tell that to somebody. The first thing I would tell you, given a choice, if you can pick a job for yourself, whether it's within the same organization or another organization, find a job that no one else has ever held. Get into a job where you can be the first person to do that job and you set the standards. If you take over a job that somebody else has had, there's always the issue of comparisons. And that other person might be your boss. So that puts a kind of an unfair advantage on you. It isn't that you can't do it, but when you do it and somebody's been there before, what do you have to do? You have to outperform the hell of it. You have to do it so well that the comments people around the office are saying is, boy, that person really does that well, given when you're in that situation. I think I only took 2 jobs out of maybe 12 that had a job description filled by somebody else before. It's so much more fun that way. The second point I would tell you is when you get into a position, know your boss's MBOs. Know your boss's goals. Make sure they're hardwired into your goals, because if you help the boss achieve their goals, you're just fine. If you don't, you may not be fine. Third item I'd share, when you join a new organization, whether it's within the same conglomerate or somewhere else, totally fresh, plan on doing a breakthrough, blow it up project in the first 6 months. Give yourself another time, a little time at the beginning to find the restroom and stuff like that. But you need to have a breakthrough project. And it should be a project that has an impact outside of your team or department or division. It has to be the project that gets up to the boss. And I'll give you a quick example. When I was at Seafirst, I was hired at Seafirst as a non-banker to start a complete product management system like the one I was in at Procter & Gamble in banking. So I came in and I had almost a blank check to go around and hire people. And I did. But one thing I did differently, I hired people for customer groups. Consumer market, small business market, mid-sized, closely held corporations, major corporate. I hired people and they were in charge of that market. The rest of the bank was organized because the accounting produced numbers in that order. Loans, deposits, fee income, ATMs. It had nothing to do with customers. It was just the way the numbers came out, so that's how they organized the people. 2 years after I got there and had my team fully humming, McKinsey came in at the request of the CEO to relook at the whole bank. Short story is, we turned the whole bank around on its side, and I was on one of the teams called customer identification, and we reorganized the whole bank by markets. So that was a mind-blowing project that went and permeated throughout the entire organization. So that's another tip when you get into a new role. Another one I will share, never argue for anything. If you want to make a recommendation to your boss, or anyone, nonprofit, with more than 3 reasons. If you have more than 3 reasons why this is a good idea, you're struggling to come up with enough reasons, and they can tell it. So you've got to have 3 good reasons, and if you don't, forget it. The last thing I'll say, because I'm running out of time, and normally I'll just totally ignore that, but if you have direct reports, people working for you, make them write their own reviews. Because the benefit of that is they're going to tell you stuff in that review that you don't even know. And they're going to also tell you where you might have fallen down in not providing good guidance. So you can learn that also. This doesn't mean that these reviews can't be modified, but you do that on a one-on-one session. And you may see some things they can work on that they don't see. And again, that tells you that you haven't been doing a good job. Because there never should be surprises in a job review. So I could go on for another hour, but I won't. The one thing I will say to close, and that is, if you think you can do it, or even if you think you can't, you're going to always be right. Thank you.